अच्छा Abrar, being one of the most influential CSS prep instructors in Pakistan, आपने क्या challenges face किए हैं?
It is very necessary that students should not sleep during your lectures.
In your opinion, why is CSS still a big thing in Pakistan और क्यों लोग अभी भी करना चाह रहे हैं?
Civil services कोई monolith entity नहीं है. There are 12 different occupational groups.
Do you think that people today know more or do they know less?
Assalamualaikum everyone, this is Namra Nasir और मेरे साथ आज मौजूद हैं the star instructor of Nearpeer and पाकिस्तान के CSS preparation के one of the best teachers. I think I may not be wrong if I say that he is the best teacher for CSS prep because he has a lot of courses like feathers in his cap और आपकी feedback, आपकी जो इनके बारे में राय है उससे हमें ये पता चलता है कि भाई this person should be there to help you prepare for CSS. I am sure आपने अब तक guess कर लिया होगा. Yes, I have with me none other than Abrar Butt. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for such a over generous introduction. इतनी ज़्यादा मुबालगा राई से आपने काम लिया.
I believe कि stats कुछ और ही कहते हैं. Stats कहते हैं कि बिल्कुल मुबालगा राई नहीं है because we've seen on Nearpeer platform और उसका जो dashboard है that says that you have like all of your courses have more than 100,000 of enrollments or not just that you have like 98% of excellent feedback. मतलब ये मुबालगा राई तो फिर बिल्कुल नहीं है ना. Numbers are speaking. तो मैं सबसे पहले आपसे पूछना ये चाहती हूँ अबरार, why do you think your courses are like so popular and why do the students love you so much?
I actually don't know the answer to the latter question, but I think as far as courses are concerned, I think I realized it long ago. Since I was a kid, I think I've been teaching in one way or the other. There's this idea by a very famous scientist, Richard Feynman, who's been one of the leading scientists of the 20th century, that if you can't explain a concept to a fifth grader, you have not understood it right.
Okay.
So, अगर आपने किसी को एक आइडिया इफेक्टिवली कम्युनिकेट करना है तो आप ये तभी आपके लिए मुमकिन होगा अगर आप खुद उस कॉन्सेप्ट को बहुत अच्छे तरीके से समझते हैं.
Simplify करके, break down करके, layman terms में.
You can't do that as long as you understand the nuances of that idea yourself. So what I do for my courses particularly is when I embark on teaching a lecture, तो मैं बहुत ज़्यादा वक्त लगाता हूँ उस टॉपिक को, उसके आइडिया को, उसके डिफरेंट डायमेंशंस को खुद समझने में. अपनी तैयारी के दौरान भी मैंने शायद इतनी गौर से उसको नहीं पढ़ा होगा, एनालाइज किया होगा, मगर अपने लेक्चर्स क्राफ्ट करते हुए आई ऑलवेज गो इन टू एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी डिटेल टू मेक श्योर दैट आई पर्सनली अंडरस्टैंड ईच एंड एवरी एस्पेक्ट ऑफ इट, एंड वंस आई डू दैट इट बिकम्स ईजियर फॉर मी टू कन्वे दोज आइडियाज टू अदर पीपल. एंड गाहे बगाहे इंस्टिंक्टिवली मुझे इस बात का इदराक रहा हमेशा से. There's this another idea by Feynman. It's called the Feynman technique, which is that if you want to learn something, you should teach it. You should try to teach it. और उसमें वो आइडिया है कि अगर आप कोई कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ रहे हैं तो आप इमेजिन करें you're teaching a class, a hypothetical number of students, and try to imagine that.
Students तैयारी कर रहे होते हैं, जितने ज़्यादा वो खुद को पढ़ा के तैयारी करते हैं या फेलोज को पढ़ा के, मतलब मैंने खुद भी हमेशा तैयारी इसी तरह की कि I used to teach my peers or colleagues. So I agree with you on that one.
It's very, very powerful tool. और मुझे याद है कि since I was like in 6th or 7th grade, I used to look out for weaker students in class and force them कि आप मेरे से आपको मैं तैयारी करवाऊँ उसके ऊपर. And और इसका एक बहुत selfish और greedy reason था that it helped my preparation. So instinctively, despite never knowing that Feynman technique as a kid, I was instinctively following that technique.
Abrar, that's awesome because ये इतनी छोटी एज पे बच्चों को नहीं पता चलता कि उनके अंदर ये एबिलिटी है. Although there are students who try to help their peers, especially जो उनके पास आ जाते हैं, उनकी हेल्प कर देते हैं. लेकिन खुद से जाके इस मतलब, do you feel that you were an empath all your life, and you still are, because that is why you understand the problems better?
I wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe now I am, but back then I unabashedly can say that it was a purely selfish reason back then that I wanted good score, I wanted good marks in class. I was a very ambitious student और मैं चाहता था कि I wanted to be at the top of the class. And for this, I started teaching कि मैं अपने students जो class के दूसरे दोस्त हैं, जो weak हैं, जो lag कर रहे हैं, उनको जो है पढ़ाऊँ और उससे मेरी अपनी तैयारी बेहतर होती थी. So that's how I started. I think that was my gateway to teaching, which effectively eventually transformed into professional teaching and eventually debating and mentoring through this platform as well.
Impressive. लेकिन आई डोंट वांट टू गो ऑफ ट्रैक, बट मुझे एक बात बहुत ज़्यादा यहाँ पे खटक रही है. पाकिस्तानी स्टूडेंट्स जितना हम जानते हैं, हमारे पेरेंट्स हमें ये सिखाते हैं कि नोट्स छुपा के रखो, कंपेटिटर होगा तो उससे बचा के रखो, या एनीथिंग ऑफ दैट सॉर्ट, जिसमें हम शेयरिंग नहीं सीखते. इतनी सी एज पे हु टॉट यू टू शेयर? ठीक है, द फर्स्ट टाइम यू रियलाइज्ड, व्हेन वाज दैट यू स्टार्टेड टीचिंग समबडी एल्स और यू स्टार्टेड हेल्पिंग समवन एल्स? व्हेन वाज दैट?
I don't exactly remember, but I think it was pretty young. I was pretty young, but ये formally हमेशा एग्जाम से पहले जाके अपने क्लास फेलोज को पढ़ाना. They used to come over to my house every time before exams. I remember at least like in 6th grade, 7th grade that used to happen, and that continued till I went to my undergrad studies.
Beautiful. That means कि ये जो आपके अंदर instinct आई है, ये कहीं ना कहीं आपके पेरेंट्स की जो उन्होंने environment provide किया उससे भी आई है. That they wanted you to share all you knew and learn and grow into a better person by sharing, by teaching others. So
I'm surprised myself because I never thought, जिस तरह आपने एक perspective दिया कि some people, और there are definitely students, especially वो जो top students होते हैं क्लास के, जो थीटे कहा जाता है, जिनको they're very protective of their preparation. But I was never like this. I never had that kind of negative impulses or that hoarding mentality. I think very secure in my and confident in my ability to excel. And maybe I also trial or error se bhi insaan seekhta hai. So maybe when I tested that theory once in a while, that when I'm teaching other students, I'm getting better myself. So then all of those negative thoughts never crossed my mind, and it was a successful formula for me. So maybe.
Amazing. That also makes you one of the best teachers. तो आप कहीं ना कहीं अपनी teaching strategies या pedagogy या जिसको andragogy कहते हैं, that are you sharing that with the teachers as well?
Basically yes. कभी intentionally ये activity नहीं हुई, but I think unintentionally, because when I started my undergrad, so undergrad I was a competitive debater, very ambitious one, and I dedicated a lot of my time to it. और उसके बाद I did, after my undergrad, before joining service, I was a debate coach as well. I was also a professional teacher. तो teaching और coaching और ये debating, ये मेरी personality का एक हिस्सा बन गए. अब इस पूरी activity के ज़रिए, and since I've also taught a lot of students from this platform who eventually go on to clear CSS, and then they become instructors. So maybe not directly, but indirectly, I've been teaching people and students who themselves eventually turn out to be teachers and students, and sometimes are better.
So you've been a mentor to a lot of people, जिसमें students भी और teachers भी हैं.
I would like to think so, yes.
What goes into creating that effective lecture or effective course? आप क्या सोच रहे होते हो, क्या thought process होता है? Because मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि the person who is so successful in his performance, in the output of that performance or in the results that people are saying, कि जो feedback है, that means कि आपने एक बहुत ज़्यादा thought put की है, एक plan बनाया है. जैसे हम एक essay लिखते हैं, तो एक outline वाला essay और एक without outline वाले essay में बहुत फ़र्क होता है. How do you go about creating that perfect lecture?
I think that's true. If something appears to be easy and smooth, it means that there's definitely a lot of work behind it. If something appears haphazard or disorganized, then you can say that there's lesser amount of work. So apne lectures banate hue, I put a lot of effort, which sometimes is problematic as well, because sometimes I take too much time in drafting one lecture. I research all the facets of a particular topic. Then I try to use all the possible tools of technology, because that's what the competitive advantage EdTech platform has. In terms of animations, in terms of graphics, in terms of videos, in terms of charts, in terms of diagrams, बहुत ज़्यादा सोच के. और मेरा जो thought process है वो बड़ी एक simple philosophy उसको guide करती है, जिसका मैंने पहले भी तज़किरा किया. I try to put myself in the shoes of a student who's a mediocre or average student, not very well versed. So I try to associate myself with those students and think कि ये जो मैं lecture draft कर रहा हूँ, is it seamless, is it organized, it is structured, is it being drafted in a way कि from start till the end वो concept उस student को या वो idea जो है वो मुकम्मल तरीके से समझ आएगा या नहीं. So wherever I find कि there are some little points, little areas where that needs more explanation, that needs different techniques of teaching. So I try to incorporate that. So at every step of the lecture, when I'm drafting it, I try to imagine how will it be perceived by an average student.
How has EdTech been effective in creating that impact, making learning more impactful?
I think the EdTech revolution is remarkable. Pakistan जैसे मुल्क में बिलखसूस यहाँ पर जहाँ there are lots of barriers to quality education. I'm not just specifically talking about the CSS market, उसके अंदर भी, मगर broadly in general as well. If you are from more metropolitan areas, urban areas where there are quality institutions, तो आपके पास वो access और resources होते हैं. मगर if you are not from those areas, so there's this geographical bias, there's this geographical friction in the path of students who want to acquire that quality education. So EdTech has the power to break down those barriers. And in fact, हमारे बहुत ज़्यादा जो students, overwhelming majority of students come from those geographical areas. But not just that. I think it's not just the access and reach. So I think I can at least say that for the platform of Nearpeer, at least, that not just those geographical barriers, in terms of breaking those geographical barriers, our courses are also qualitatively superior to other competitors. It's by virtue of the fact that EdTech offers you things that physical institutes can't. First, I think as an instructor as well, every day won't be my best. I can't give my all every day. So when you go to a physical institute, मुझे उन्हीं 15 से 20 दिनों के अंदर एक कोर्स कवर करवाना है और वो 15 से 20 दिन मेरी बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस नहीं होगी. But if I'm delivering that through recorded lecture module on an EdTech, I will record each lecture will be my best lecture because I could update that, I could re-record it, I could record it at my own convenience when I'm comfortable, when I'm not exhausted, when I'm not tired, when I've gone through each and every aspect of that lecture before. So it offers the avenue to give your best. And if you're creating that course structure, if there are 30 lectures and 5 of them are average, 2 are not good, you have the option of replacing those 7 not good lectures with great lectures. So overall, your course is exceptional. But you can't do that in a single go when you're doing at a physical institute. तो मेरे ख्याल से ये जो Nearpeer का और EdTech का मॉडल है वो बहुत इस तरह ऑफर करता है आपको ability to give better lectures. And secondly, also in terms of using technological resources like videos, graphics, images, charts, diagrams, these are some things that physical institute पे आप उसी तरह conventional blackboard, whiteboard model के ऊपर उस तरीके से convey नहीं कर सकते.
Tech schools भी आ जाए जिनमें अब इस तरह की technology use हो रही है तो उनको merge करना पड़ता है. But यहाँ पे it's like in one go. It's more like in a flow.
It's more intuitive. Also in terms of retention and other innovative methods. Immediately आप lecture देखते हैं उसके बाद retention के quizzes आ जाते हैं. You compete with other students on quizzes. You are ranked in those as well. So in terms of getting yourself, in terms of maximizing your ability to learn a lecture, I think EdTech offers a lot of options for you to do that. And lastly, I think from a student's perspective as well, students also don't have their best day. Every day is not their best day. But from an EdTech platform, they can watch a lecture at their own convenience, at their own time, at their own pace, and they can re-watch it. आपने अगर physical institute में कोई एक lecture देखा है किसी बड़े अच्छे teacher का भी देखा है, आप बार-बार नहीं देख सकते. You can't refer that.
Nearpeer philosophy of what to learn, when to learn, how to learn, how much to learn, how fast to learn, and where to learn.
Giving power to the students, it democratizes the knowledge accumulation component on part of students.
There are a lot of people who still are reluctant of adapting to technology. और भी बहुत सारी limitations हैं जो technological आप कह लें adaptation में आ रही हैं. What is the reason behind those? What are those limitations? What are the reasons? And how can they be overcome?
I think कि एक बड़ा मसला EdTech is still its very nascent stages, especially in Pakistan. और I think globally भी इसके ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा research हो चुकी है, मगर there's no conclusive answer as of yet through that research as well कि what makes EdTech successful. We are not able to find the holy grail of EdTech as of yet. कि why, despite being such a powerful tool, it has not been able to be extremely disruptive. अभी भी ये उस level पर disruption cause नहीं कर पाए. And to be honest, we don't know the answer. But some things I think are common. You need to, as an instructor, for instance, if you want to join as a maybe an entrepreneur, if you want to build a platform like this, you will need to see your audience. You will need to know your customers. I think इसके अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा there's a lot of business sense involved in this. आप अभी भी so I think when you're talking about high stake exams, when you're talking about exams in which students are self-motivated, like CSS, like a lot of anti-test exams, maybe IELTS, GRE, these are the kinds of things in which students are self-motivated. So the consumer are willing to pay for a good content. That's where edtech thrives, at least for now. And in areas where students are not generally self-motivated, but they have to do it. So for instance, conventional schooling system, conventional tuition के अंदर जहाँ operate करते हैं, वहाँ पे edtech has not been able to penetrate as much, at least in Pakistan. And if you have to, and the cost of acquiring a customer in that area is more than what you actually make. So it doesn't make a financial sense for a lot of edtechs to go into that market. But that's where volume is. ये वो जगह है जहाँ volume है और scale है. So the moment that somebody figures out how to make more money, then they are spending on acquiring a customer through marketing.
So talking about edtech perspective, आपने बहुत अच्छा explain किया है. How about the students' perspective? उसमें जो limitations आ रही हैं, how are they being covered, and how do you think that the students will be able to adapt to technology? Because बहुत सारे students हैं जो आज भी चाहते हैं कि नहीं, मुझे in person कोई teacher पढ़ाए, बिल्कुल मेरे सामने teacher मौजूद होना चाहिए, और they do not want to rely, they want that human one-to-one interaction, and they also want that physical space जहाँ पे सारे एक ही तरह का काम करें. वो uniformity जो एक school या academy या tuition center में मिलती है, they still want that. तो उनके लिए how is edtech going to be helpful?
I think इसमें पहली चीज़ तो ये कि it's a lot of it has to do with peer pressure, and a lot of it has to do with the friction and resistance to change. इसमें मुझे बड़ी अच्छी तरह याद है, हमने जब Nearpeer पे अपने lectures record करवाए और शुरू किया था, तो it was not a very engaging process for us. We considered it like a side hustle. हमने कहा let's try it out, let's see how it goes, and it was a very small business, it was a very small thing. But then COVID happened. And then during COVID, people were forced in a way to look for alternative options. And when they came to the platform, they realized that this is great. This is in a lot of ways better than how physical institutes teach. Or that is why from that time onwards, our growth started exponentially. And that's, I think, is indicative of the fact that जो एक कन्वेंशनल रेजिस्टेंस है, बिकॉज एक माशरे की इथोस डेवलप हो जाती हैं, एक हेयर से बेसिस पे आप डिसीजंस ले रहे होते हैं बहुत ज़्यादा, क्योंकि हर कोई जा रहा है, क्योंकि हर कोई करे, क्योंकि हर कोई फलानी जगह पे जा रहा है, हर कोई फलानी इंस्ट्रक्टर से पढ़ रहा है. येस, पीपल हैव दैट फोमो एज वेल. सो इस वजह से स्टूडेंट्स टेंड टू गो विद द कन्वेंशनल पाथ. तो दैट्स द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज. सो आई थिंक द फर्स्ट that's the job on part of the platform as well, that they have to break that friction, of course. And secondly, on part of students as well, to look for those alternative means. लेकिन वक्त के साथ साथ ये देखने में आया है कि कैसे, चूँकि अब टेक्नोलॉजी की अडेप्टेशन यंगर जनरेशन में ज़्यादा होती जा रही है, अब यूजुअली यूट्यूब और अदर मीन्स को यू कैन ऑर्डिनरीली यूज दोज मीन्स नेवरदलेस, सो इट्स बिकमिंग ईजियर फॉर देम टू यूज. बट रिगार्डलेस देयर आर डेफिनेटली सम लिमिटेशन, जैसे आपने तस्करा किया कि टीचर के साथ डायरेक्ट इंटरेक्शन, डायरेक्ट इवेलुएशंस. बट देन अगेन उन डोमेन्स के अंदर भी edtech इवॉल्व कर रही है. अब जैसे हमने अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे वी स्टार्टेड दैट डिस्कशन फोरम फीचर, सो फॉर एवरी वीडियो यू कुड पोस्ट योर comments and questions and instructors respond to that. We're also training the AI bot using the generative AI और chat GPT का जो feature है उसको use करते हुए अपने parameters के ऊपर उसको train करें ताकि वो evaluate कर सके students के responses को, which over time by the way will be better than how physical institutes के अंदर teachers in person evaluate करते हैं eventually.
I will get to that because मैं उसके लिए एक special question भी आपसे पूछूंगी, because I myself am working in AI based creative strategy and learning models using AI, तो definitely उसके ऊपर करती हूँ मैं बात. उससे पहले मुझे ये बताएं कि what was your journey with Nearpeer, especially जिस time पे pandemic आया और यूँ समझे कि सब कुछ shut down हो गया और it was kind of unimaginable to start teaching online पाकिस्तान में. ठीक है, वर्चुअल यूनिवर्सिटी को आज भी हम लोग बहुत एक वीक एस्पेक्ट समझते हैं. अब शायद जाके लोग सोचे कि भाई दिस इज अ स्मार्ट मूव कि तुम साथ काम करो और साथ वर्चुअल यूनिवर्सिटी से डिग्री ले लो. ठीक है, या इंटरनेशनली कोई भी कोर्स पकड़ो, coursera, Udemy या खान अकेडमी, और वहाँ से सीखो और उसके बाद ग्रो करो. लेकिन उस वक्त ये इमेज नहीं था इनका. So how did that begin, and why do you think this all became so successful all of a sudden?
I think usme bhi there's this distinguishing feature. I still think there are some aspects of the physical learning that are that cannot be replaced, at least as of yet. So when we talk about university level की education, there the learning is not just classroom learning. वहाँ पर आप सिर्फ knowledge gain करने के लिए classroom में नहीं जा रहे होते university के अंदर या अपनी किसी भी degree program के अंदर. It is a culmination of a lot of things. You participate in extracurriculars. You also learn how to socially engage with people, how to interact. आपके interpersonal skills, interpersonal competencies आपकी develop होती हैं. These are things that you will develop when you physically interact with people. So that I think is irreplaceable. But जहाँ पे आपको laser focus skill development चाहिए, there's this one particular aspect that you want to develop. जैसे मैंने high stake exams का तस्करा किया खास तौर पे. But regardless of those high stake exams, maybe like आपको खास स्किल सीखना चाहते हैं, कोई एक एस्पेक्ट पकड़ के उसके ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल्ड लेजर फोकस्ड आपको प्रेपरेशन रिक्वायर्ड है. दैट्स वेयर एडटेक थ्राइव्स. सो मे बी यू कैन लर्न स्टेटिस्टिक्स थ्रू खान अकेडमी. that you won't be able to learn utne अच्छे तरीके से at your own class and university. But university will also teach you how to interact with the teacher, with your peers, how to gain confidence. Yes, that's not going to go anywhere. So I think it's these two things. And Nearpeer के ऊपर भी our journey has been successful, especially post COVID, where people have realized that we do not actually need to spend so much time and effort. और आप ये देखें कि बहुत सारे students out of Lahore, out of Karachi, Islamabad, जहाँ पे physical institutes हैं CSS की preparation के, उनके अलावा जगहों से आते हैं. So they move. So somebody would move from Balochistan to Karachi, relocate there, spend money to stay there. फिर एक फॉरेन शहर में जाके, एलियन शहर में जाके रहेंगे. फिर वहाँ पे they have to commute every day to that place. फिर सारा दिन क्लासेस अटेंड करेंगे and then will start their self study. So it takes a huge emotional, intellectual and mental toll on a student, and it exhausts them and drains them. On the contrary, stay at your home, don't spend money on going to that place, and at the comfort of your own place, targeted preparation आप कर सकते हैं. So I think a lot of students realize this during COVID, that this is great, we could do this, we've gotten not all wrong. तो आई थिंक दैट्स अगेन जो मैं फ्रिक्शन की बात कर रहा था, उस फ्रिक्शन को, उस बैरियर को तोड़ने में इस चीज़ ने, कोविड ने खास तौर पे उस पेंडेमिक के टाइम पे हैड दैट एक्सेलरेटेड. नाउ अ लॉट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स हैव डेवलप्ड दैट कॉन्फिडेंस, एंड देन फ्रॉम बात से बात निकलती गई और ये सिलसिला आगे चलता गया.
अच्छा Abrar, being one of the most influential CSS prep instructors in Pakistan, आपने क्या challenges face किए हैं while preparing those lectures, while preparing content, and then also convincing the students that yes, they must prepare from here as well?
To be honest, I've never convinced anybody. Thankfully, I don't have to do it. Nearpeer platform is good at convincing students themselves, and I'm extremely focused at my own work. But my job description is to make good content, to deliver good lectures. And
exactly there, जब आप स्टूडेंट्स से बात कर रहे होते हैं, उनको वन ऑन वन सिखा रहे होते हैं, या ऑन साइट होते हैं, पर्सनल लेवल पे, फिजिकल उसमें प्रेमिसेस में होते हैं, देयर इज़ अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ ऑरा, देयर इज़ अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ एम्बियंस. और उसकी वजह से स्टूडेंट्स आपके साथ जो सवाल जवाब कर पाते हैं वो रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर में नहीं होता. मतलब आई माई सेल्फ हैव प्रिपेयर्ड इंग्लिश कोर्स फॉर इंग्लिश फॉर ऑल के नाम से. इट्स नॉट फॉर CSS, बट इट्स फॉर यंगस्टर्स एंड एडल्ट्स जिनको इंग्लिश नहीं आती बिल्कुल. सो इट्स बेसिक इंग्लिश. आई हैड टू conduct a lot of activities and I had to imagine that somebody is responding to me. तो वो जो lack of interaction है, how did you overcome that, especially CSS जैसे syllabus के साथ जो इतना tough है, और उसको engaging कैसे बनाया आपने?
Yes, this was a huge challenge. मुझे जब मैंने अपने पहले कुछ lectures record कराए, तो I thought I was just staring into a blank wall, and I am a very fun instructor, I'd like to believe. I make a lot of jokes, a lot of dad jokes are in my lectures. There are lots of things like this, but समझ नहीं आती थी कि whether the joke is successful or not. So it was weird, it was challenging. But over time, I convinced myself that no, this is important. It is very necessary that students should not sleep during your lectures. And we are very glad that students don't fall asleep in our lectures, at least as far as we know from their feedback. But then again, I started using like a lot of memes and a lot of that kind of content that you could use in an edtech platform especially. Yes, like an online lecture does that, but maybe you can't do that in a live session or live lecture. But yes, I had to develop that penchant for humor in a one-sided conversation. And yes, I think that element has been the most challenging aspect of my entire teaching journey.
This I think must be very helpful. मैं खुद भी humor, I believe कि humor के बगैर तो पढ़ाया ही नहीं जा सकता. मतलब whether you are teaching online or in person, you must use humor because it's one of the strongest tools of keeping people engaged and hooked with your content.
I think maybe not just for teaching and in that sense. I think humor humor is the most important skill. Like sometimes young students, young graduates ask like what should they invest in at university? जब वो young हैं तो किस skills में invest करें? So I always tell them like invest in your humor, invest in your personality. Like these are the things that will take you far ahead in life than maybe like some hard skills. Interestingly, so being likable and being able to command a conversation, being able to be charismatic in a conversation and hold a group together is a very, very unique skill. And if you have that, you will go far ahead in your life, in your personal relationships, in your social settings, and even in your professional career aspirations.
Yes, and even the ability to make people laugh while they're also able to learn. I think इससे बेहतर कोई बात ही नहीं हो सकती, and that teacher is lovable. Absolutely. Indeed. अच्छा, Abrar, what makes an edtech and what breaks an edtech? Or in the perspective of Nearpeer, especially, how has Nearpeer survived while so many other startups, especially educational technology startups, shut down or are planning to shut down or got merged or acquired by some other companies? Why is Nearpeer still there?
I think in the context of Pakistan especially, the general thing is that there are economic challenges, of course. But there are two things that stand out. Number one is the last mile problem. A lot of I don't think it's exclusive to edtech. I think in a lot of businesses, jo last mile problem hai, you basically do a lot of things, but you don't complete it. So there is a lot of work involved in making an authentic edtech brand. तो अब जैसे अगर आप Nearpeer की बात करें, तो CA के बहुत सारे कोर्सेज हैं, ACCA के कोर्सेज हैं, MD CAT के हैं, ECAT के हैं, CSS के itself 6 कंपल्सरी कोर्सेज हैं और पता नहीं कोई 25-30 ऑप्शनल कोर्सेज हैं. अब इतने ज़्यादा कोर्सेज क्रिएट करवाना, इंस्ट्रक्टर्स को अलाइन करना, टेक्नोलॉजी को अलाइन करना, क्वालिटी को मेंटेन करना, उनको सेल करना, रन करना, ऑर्गेनाइज करना, एंड टू एंड उसकी डिलीवरी करना, इस वॉल्यूम के ऊपर बहुत मुश्किल काम है. What a lot of startups fail to do is कि वो half-hearted attempts करते हैं रास्ते में, when they do go halfway and they don't see the results and they give up. But it's especially after you complete those last legs, the last miles, when you operate at a volume, operate at a scale, when you target a mass audience, then it creates your brand, it creates your authenticity, and when it going to create revenue. So for instance, अगर आप 5 कंपल्सरी कोर्सेज CSS के बना देंगे 6 की बजाय, तो आपकी सेल्स उतनी नहीं होंगी बिकॉज स्टूडेंट्स नीड 6 कंपल्सरी कोर्सेज. सिर्फ एक कोर्स ऐड करने से आपकी
credibility बढ़ जाती है,
authenticity and the business sense as a customer आपकी बढ़ जाएगी. So then you
वो holistic approach से जब आप आएंगे तो people would be like, this is a one-stop solution. I don't have to go to multiple platforms.
Definitely. And I think the second reason is that बहुत सारे जो investor driven startups हैं पाकिस्तान के अंदर, they don't have that kind of fiscal discipline because by virtue of the fact that they are driven by the investors, they are not revenue generating, they are not driven by their revenues. I think Nearpeer understood this from very start, that you have to be self-sustaining. और अक्सर क्योंकि आपका अपना कैश नहीं होता, इन्वेस्टर्स का होता है, तो जिन लोगों ने भी फंडिंग रेस की होती है, they want to feel like big shots, and then they get big offices. They spend a lot on useless capital expenditure, which doesn't create any real value. Unnecessarily बड़ी conferences में जा रहे हैं, बड़े hotels में रह रहे हैं, and
working towards shashka more than impact.
ज़्यादा शशका के ऊपर focus होता है, and then they're not financially viable themselves. So I think Nearpeer ने हर time पे, based on economic situations, based on its own financial health, have made decisions to make itself financially viable and not dependent on investors. Rather, it is self-sustaining itself. It's a revenue generating. वो अपने customers से ही self-sustaining है. And that's, I think, is very, very essential, especially in the context of last 3-4 years, जो कि startups का ecosystem पाकिस्तान में जिस तरह हमने बहुत ऊपर जाते हुए भी देखा है और बहुत नीचे जाते हुए भी देखा है, उसमें the founders need to understand this.
And even though Nearpeer is working on such a model, जहाँ पे उनका freemium model काम करता है, they offer scholarships and they offer free courses and there are seasons जिसमें वो पूरे सारे के सारे students को बिल्कुल free of cost हर चीज़ की access दे देते हैं. And उसके बावजूद this startup is sustaining. So how does a freemium model work?
I think Nearpeer, because it's a edtech model, और जिस तरह हम पहले गुफ्तगू की कि edtech के अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा resistance है, friction है, you need to create a demand for this. So in order to create that demand, ये बड़ा price dependent चीज़ है, क्योंकि already people do not trust online sources, and on top of this there's a price tag associated. So people are more reluctant to buy courses from an online platform than they are at any physical random institution. उस डिमांड को क्रिएट करने के लिए, उस अपनी वैल्यू को कन्वे करने के लिए स्टूडेंट्स को, दे हैव टू डू इट. दिस इज़ वेरी सिमिलर टू व्हाट अ लॉट ऑफ राइड शेयरिंग और मॉडल्स जो थे, sharing economy models like Uber and Careem did, that initially they wanted to make people comfortable that this is something that they could use as an everyday commute. And once people were hooked up, or once people realized that this is a good model, this is a good alternative to conventional commuting, so then people were willing to pay. Yeah, people were willing to pay. So platforms like Nearpeer have a very daunting task that they don't have a market. They have to create their market.
Making people realize that they need something. When you need unrealized, say realization tak lekar aana. And that's a very insightful approach towards it. Abrar, abhi tak humne aapki baat ki as an instructor. Even as a student who loved to teach his peers, हम भूल गए कि you are a CSP as well. You're a CSP officer.
मैं भी भूल जाता हूँ.
I'm sure जितना ज़्यादा impact आपका इस तरफ है, मुझे लगता है कि आप अक्सर भूल जाते हो, you're influential person in the office.
मेरी उतना ज़्यादा impact वहाँ पे नहीं है.
अच्छा, so मैं जानना ही चाहती हूँ कि in your opinion, why is CSS still a big thing in Pakistan, और क्यों लोग अभी भी करना चाह रहे हैं? क्या आपको नजर आता है? What's the trend?
To be honest, इसका कोई बहुत अच्छा reason शायद नहीं है. The reason why a lot of people still appearing for these exams. I remember जब हमने 2017 में attempt किया था, there were some 12,000-13,000 students who appeared, and now I think it's over 30,000 now. So a lot of people are applying. That doesn't mean that job itself has become more lucrative. It means that the other alternatives are becoming lesser lucrative. So because Maashi halat challenging hai, it's tougher for young grads. And I sometimes feel really, really sorry and very concerned about young grads, because there are very limited opportunities for young grads in Pakistan. Job market, private sector ke andar, in terms of wages, remuneration, career progression, growth, wo badi stagnated hai, inflation and all of those issues. Because of these challenges, people look for more stable alternatives, more traditional alternatives where they won't have to worry about a lot of these things. So one of them is that kya wahi sarkari naukri mein aa jaye. The other is that people start moving abroad as well. So you see ke ek correlation chal raha hai, ke you see that the number of people appearing in CSS exam is also increasing, or at the same time the number of people applying for immigration or maybe foreign universities और यहाँ बाहर jobs के लिए, वो भी at the same time increase करे. That is indicative of a larger underlying problem that basically आपकी जो indigenous economy है, आपका private sector है, उसके अंदर जो limitations हैं, it's not enough. It's not able to keep up with the demands of the young grads, and it's a very difficult time for them. So I think this is the reason why so many people are still opting for civil services. So is being in civil services worth it? I think that's a very important question, and a lot of students don't think this through. It's a very lifestyle choice. It's a very demanding profession, like every other profession. And if you're choosing profession, abhi bhi students डू नॉट टेक एन इन्फॉर्म्ड डिसीजन। या तो वालिदैन का ख्वाब होता है, फैमिली का ख्वाब होता है, इर्द गिर्द लोगों को देखा होता है, या वो आप सोशल मीडिया से इन्फ्लुएंस होके
क्या आखिरी ख्वाहिश होती है
एक्सट्रीमली क्रिटिकल ऑफ के जो सोशल मीडिया इन्फ्लुएंस के
इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केट जो CSPs की बनी है। आई वॉज अबाउट टू कम टू दैट, आई एम सो हैप्पी यू आर ऑलरेडी देयर।
ridiculous anyways, so I think कि वो उन सारी चीज़ों से इन्फ्लुएंस होकर स्टूडेंट्स जनरली ये डिसीजन लेते हैं कि मे बी दिस इज़ लाइक अ वेरी amazing profession, and it is a great profession, it is a great career if your temperament aligns with it, if your aspirations align with it, if your skill set aligns with it, and then एक broader tag लग गया है CSS या civil services कोई monolith entity नहीं है। There are 12 different occupational groups. What you do in Pakistan Administrative Service is remarkably different from what you will do in an Inland Revenue Service. It's very different from what you will do in a police group. आप ये बहुत different है जो आप railways में होंगे तो करें। कोई monolith entity नहीं है, तो आप इस बारे में कभी नहीं सोचते। आपकी ज़िंदगी एक हर ग्रुप में ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क होगा। तो आप जो भी अपना प्रोफेशनल लाइफस्टाइल डिसीजन ले रहे हैं अपनी ज़िंदगी के लिए, उसके लिए आपको इन फैक्टर्स को ज़रूर इवैल्यूएट करना चाहिए कि व्हाट डू यू वांट फ्रॉम लाइफ, what kind of temperament do you have, what kind of skills do you have, and how those skills align with the nature of the job. I understand that there are limitations. There are some people who would not have social networks in service के जिनसे वो ये guidance ले सकें या उनको मुकम्मल information नहीं मिल सकती. But for the people who can, I think they should definitely try to understand the nuances and complexities before jumping on this, because it's a very daunting process.
Exactly. वही बात है कि there are people who have been discussing with me regarding their career choices, and they often ask कि हमें CSS करना चाहिए या नहीं। तो मैंने कहती हूँ देखो, CSS करना itself is not the issue. You might be able to pass the exams, but do you want to sustain that job, and can you sustain the job and in the best way possible? या ऐसे बस गुजारा लाइक चला लोगे या फिर खुद तंग होगे उसमें जाके, because you do not know the kind of environment that you're going to face वहाँ पे। उस point पे आके they become speechless. तो people do not think till that stage. वो यहीं तक सोचते हैं CSS clear करना है because it's a ठप्पा कि मैंने CSS clear किया हुआ है। वो एक इज्जत का मामला।
Bragging rights चाहिए।
और फिर वो जो इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केट ने एक वो बनाया ना, डॉक्टर्स के साथ भी यही हुआ है। बहुत सारे लोग मेडिकल में इसलिए गए कि उन्हें इन्फ्लुएंसर बनना था। Many of them are not practicing MBBS, but they're practicing being Instagram influencers, doctors or dentists. Same goes for CSPs. बहुत सारे इस तरह के हैं जो जिनका सिर्फ ऑनलाइन एक चस्का होता है, and since they are able to afford certain things, लोगों को लगता है कि every person who clears a CSS exam is going to reach there. तो इसको इस बारे में अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करना कितनी जिम्मेदारी है आपकी as a CSP and as an instructor?
जिम्मेदारी तो डेफिनेटली है, मगर शायद हम उस जिम्मेदारी को उतनी बखूबी नहीं निभा पाए, और शायद निभाना मुश्किल भी होगा, बिकॉज मे बी द टाइड इज़ अगेंस्ट अस, मे बी द टाइड इज़ जनरली अगेंस्ट a system where there is so much misinformation going on.
Right.
So I think we do definitely have that responsibility, and I try to fulfill that responsibility. Whenever people interact with me, whenever students ask, I try to give them, provide them with a holistic information. My juniors from university or at different universities या Nearpeer के platform के ज़रिए भी जो भी लोग मुझसे पूछते हैं, I try to give them a holistic picture. But of course, my voice can't reach out to everybody or every household.
उसके लिए you have this platform.
I hope that this reaches every household, but yes, but still a lot of people, I think, make this mistake of not evaluating the different dimensions of the job. Both sides, yes. And people should not get disillusioned. It's still a great career. It's one of the best careers in Pakistan, provided that it aligns with your career aspirations, with your skill set, and with your temperament.
Agreed. Abrar, आप देख रहे हैं कि एडटेक के साथ डेफिनेटली अब इंटरनेट की इतनी ज़्यादा एक्सेस है इंफॉर्मेशन की, और ये जो जनरेटिव प्री ट्रेन ट्रांसफॉर्मर्स यानी GPTs हैं, उनकी वजह से जो इस वक्त इंफॉर्मेशन का एक मैं कहूँगी कि अबंडेंस है। Do you think that people today know more or do they know less
एक कन्वेंशनली बड़ा ये मुगालता पाया जाता है कि शायद जो हमसे पुराने ज़मानों में लोग थे वो ज़्यादा समझदार थे, ज़्यादा पढ़े लिखे थे या ज़्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन थी. When we talk about people from the past, there is this general nostalgia associated that maybe those eras were more well-informed. Yeah, more well-informed people existed. But in fact, it's actually not true. Statistically speaking, a young high school graduate know about the world more than a scholar in 16th or 17th century, simply by virtue of the fact that that scholar in 16th and 17th century had absolutely no idea about Big Bang. He had absolutely no idea about how steam engine functions, because इस तरह की कोई फैसिलिटी अवेलेबल ही नहीं थी, साइंटिफिक ब्रेक थ्रूज ही नहीं हुए थे, नॉलेज इतनी आगे बढ़ी ही नहीं थी. Just by virtue of the fact that modern science and modern knowledge वो इतना ज़्यादा excel किया है, people know today more. In terms of raw information, people today know more than our ancestors ever did. But people today are bombarded with information, as you said. There's information overload. There is a lot of raw information. And also the social media platform has snatched your focus. So I think what's missing is a sense of perspective. People know a lot, but they don't have a sense of perspective. They don't have those analytical foundations where they can analyze, evaluate different ideas, different concepts, different viewpoints, and then form a more rational and informed decision. अब तो polarization भी बहुत होती जा रही है, because you are fed with one particular kind of information, one particular kind of political ideology. Your social media algorithms are trained in such.
Then there is this mob mentality online as well. Just when one person of great influence follows something, does something, or says something, everybody considers them authentic. और वो उसी के पीछे चल पड़ते हैं, blind eyed.
Absolutely. Yes. So what we require in the modern world is more sense of perspective, and that's something that if we on individual level have to do, we need to pause and reflect. When we're consuming a lot of content, we are finding out a lot of new information through online different online sources, but we need to pause and reflect on that and evaluate that, and then have a sense of perspective on those.
Agreed. And मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि अभी वो people are thinking that it's such a fast-paced world कि अब pause और reflect का time नहीं है. You just gain information. वही garbage in garbage out चल रहा है. पहले होता था कि garbage in gold out. कि आप उसमें से process करें, जो आपको लगता है कि ठीक है वो आप रखें, बल्कि नहीं, gold in and garbage out. ये तो आपके पास जो इन्फॉर्मेशन आ रही है उसमें से जो आपने रिटेन करनी है करें, जो गार्बेज है उसको निकाल दें. अब ये है कि एवरीथिंग इज बीइंग रिटेन्ड, एवरीथिंग इज क्रिएटिंग एन ओपिनियन, एंड एवरीबडी हैज़ एन ओपिनियन ओवर एवरीथिंग. Especially as a CSS aspirant, how healthy is that, and how harmful can it be?
So a lot of people have this misconception that if they have to do CSS, they need to know everything about the world, और आपको बहुत आलिम फाजिल होना पड़ेगा, आपको बड़ी किताबें पढ़ी होनी चाहिए. And those who qualify and clear CSS eventually also give that kind of impression कि वो जैसे बहुत कोई आलम फाजिल लोग हैं. मगर that's wrong. That's a complete misconception. CSS requires a very dedicated, systemic, disciplined and organized study, and a very smart and focused preparation. You actually don't need to know a lot. You may need to know a little bit about a lot of different things, and a lot भी defined हैं, बड़ी clearly defined है आपके course work के अंदर, तो आपने उससे stick करना है. You basically have to answer, let's say, 4 questions per exam, and each question is going to take like 35 to 40 minutes. तो आप 35-40 मिनट में एक सवाल में 9-10-11 सफ़े लिख लेंगे, तो आपको उतना ही information चाहिए. तो अक्सर लोग इस वजह से इंटिमिडेट होते हैं. अक्सर एस्पायरेंट्स आई नो दे आर वेरी इंटिमिडेटेड, दे आर एग्जॉस्टेड, दे आर वेरी एंक्शस. वो बहुत इस चीज़ के फ़िक्रमंद होते हैं कि उनकी बहुत नॉलेज बेस उतनी स्ट्रॉन्ग शायद नहीं थी. सो आई ऑलवेज टेल देम कि ये इस डोंट फॉल इनटू दिस ट्रैप दैट यू हैव टू ओवर स्टडी. यू जस्ट हैव टू स्टडी अ वेरी सिस्टमिकली, और डिसिप्लिन के साथ आपने एक ऑर्गेनाइज किस्म की प्रेपरेशन करनी है, एक बड़ी स्मार्ट और स्ट्रेटिजिक प्रेपरेशन इस तरीके से करनी है. विच इज़ वाई आई जेन्युइनली थिंक दैट unlike a lot of people who think that CSS is a test of your intelligence, I don't think so.
It's a nerve. It's a test of your nerves.
It's a test of your discipline. It's a test of your dedication. It's just an train. Yes, it's just one train. आपकी एक जॉब की रिक्रूटमेंट का एक टेस्ट है. उस रिक्रूटमेंट टेस्ट के कुछ पैरामीटर्स हैं, कुछ आउटलाइंस हैं, वो पैरामीटर आउटलाइन बहुत बड़ी हैं, बहुत ब्रॉड हैं, उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा सब्जेक्ट ज़रूर आते हैं, लेकिन बहरहाल उसकी कुछ बाउंड्रीज़ और कुछ लिमिटेशंस हैं. उन्हीं बाउंड्रीज और लिमिटेशंस के अंदर रहकर, उसी सिस्टम के अंदर आपने रह के उसको जिस तरह अगर अच्छे तरीके से नेविगेट कर लिया तो यू विल क्लियर इट. But it is not objectively a test of your intelligence. So those sometimes who don't clear exam,
They start doubting
they
themselves.
start second guessing themselves and doubting themselves. So I'd like to tell them that it's not. It's a lot of it is also luck based. It's also 80-20 rule. Either be 20% of it is your luck. So हो सकता है कि some at a particular year you just fell prey to bad luck. But even if it's not the case, even if you fail, you are not lesser than those. Yeah, you're not a failure. It doesn't indicate that you have lesser knowledge or आप उतने smart नहीं हैं. Not at all.
Abrar, what are your aspirations or any idealistic goal that you have that you want to accomplish within the education sector, especially with the help of Nearpeer?
I have a very idealistic long-term goal, which is that जिस तरह edtech एक नई innovation है, revolution है in the world of education, where you can use technology, online resources to make learning more informative, more effective. इसी तरह with the advent of virtual reality, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता there is this a lot of development going on in teaching through virtual reality and augmented reality. So my ideal goal within the education system, as a passionate advocate of education, as somebody who's extremely interested in not just teaching, in not just pedagogy, but also in the public policy of education, I would ideally sometime in my life would want to work in a setup, in an environment where AR and VR based education ecosystem, and there's work going on.
This is not very a far cry. मेरे ख्याल है बहुत जल्दी होने वाला है.
People are already doing it globally, तो इस पे बहुत काम हो रहा है. So I think it's going to be fascinating. If you're in a history class, instead of your teacher telling you what Plato said, you're actually sitting in Plato's academy in that setting, and Plato's teaching and Aristotle is cross-questioning. If you're learning about Roman history, maybe you can experience that. You could see
these ideas already incorporated in many of the museums in the US, जैसे कि Abraham Lincoln's museum, and they have the hologram of Abraham Lincoln walking around, और आप चल रहे होते हैं और आपको सारे politicians इर्द गिर्द चलते हुए नजर आ रहे हैं उस era के, उनकी meetings की आवाज़ें, whispers, उनके family dinners में बर्तनों की आवाज़ें, मतलब it's happening right in front of you, and it's so it puts you into a nostalgia, और आप वो चीज़ें फिर आपकी memory से निकलती नहीं है. तो ये ना कि आप जितना ज़्यादा when you talk about the work psychology के visual, auditory, reading, writing and kinesthetic सारे forms of learning होंगे तो उतना ही ज़्यादा impactful होगा उस teaching का जो आप कह लें कि influence है.
Yes, the immersive learning I think is the future, and
I am really hopeful कि हो सकता है कि आप और Nearpeer collaborate करके कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा ला रहे हो बहुत जल्द.
Oh, that would be fantastic. If a startup in Pakistan, if Nearpeer could do something like this, that would be amazing.
I'm really hoping that it would happen someday. Abrar, any message for the youth, especially regarding tech adaptability and this era of AI and sensory and knowledge overload? So much going on, the chaos and the uncertainty, what is about to happen next, economic crunch, and on the other hand, a lot of opportunities, especially in the tech side for the people who are working remotely. So what do you want to tell the people?
I think I would like to tell them, because I see people extremely stressed out. People are just exhausted. I'd like to tell everybody, relax, step back. It's not a race. You're in your early 20s, mid 20s, and you feel that you're falling behind. And especially aap, chunke again social media paradigm hai, you see the best of other people's lives and think everybody's going ahead and you're falling behind, when in fact it's just it's mostly a show. It's mostly a fig leaf, a cover. So I would like to tell them, relax, focus, pause, reflect, take it slow. You're not in any race. You're your own competition. You should try to be better than what you were last year, a couple of years ago, last month, last week. Yes, and that's the only thing that you should focus on. Other than that, relax, enjoy. You will find avenues. There are lots of avenues in the world. you would not starve in overwhelming majority of cases. If you are an educated person, you will make something of your life. But if you will fall yourself into a constant comparison with other people, तो आप हमेशा जो हैं वो एक ज़हनी दबाव में रहेंगे, and you will not go ahead. So relax, be a more secure person, more comfortable in your own skin, and in fact, ironically, this will catapult you ahead in life.
Right. Abrar, मुझे obviously समझ में आ रही है कि why he is one of the most influential CSS preparation teachers, because he does not want you to take all that pressure and get into all of that chaos. He wants you to think otherwise, कि भाई दुनिया में तो chaos है, अपने अंदर calmness लाओ. And that is the most essential thing for you to become successful. Thank you very much, Abrar.
Thank you for having me.
And I think कि इससे आपका जो ये इतना insightful किस्म की conversation रही है, I'm sure इससे बहुत सारे लोग फ़ायदा उठाने वाले हैं, not just the CSS aspirants, but other people who are either connected or not connected with Nearpeer, but somehow connected with education and the advancement of technology and tech adaptability. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Till I have another podcast with another amazing teacher or an influential person who impacts your life in some way or the other, मुझे दीजिए इजाज़त. अल्लाह हाफ़िज़.